Niching and micro niching for bookkeepers. Let's dive in. So, Jeannie here from the Strategic Bookkeeper. I've got an email from a bookkeeper in New Zealand, or from a woman in New Zealand who is looking at migrating from, a particular industry in accounts, in finance, and all this kind of thing. And we've been talking for a little while, and she's preparing to join my transformation program. So she's got a great email, and I thought it was an opportunity to do a little content on niching and micro niching for bookkeepers. And actually on my list of things to do is a micro niching masterclass for my clients actually. Okay, let's dive in. So the question is we're going to call this bookkeeper Sally. So for Sally, she is thinking about niching, and in this case, she is looking at female small business owners. And for example, mum bosses or mumpreneurs, as I sometimes call myself, a mumpreneur. And she's wondering, is that, a niche? Is it a micro niche? And so on. So I would say it is a niche, not a micro niche, whereas a micro niche would be where we said, I'm working with women course creators. We'd be getting closer to the micro niche. When we're thinking of niching, we want to think of a dartboard. Okay, so this is the dartboard, and on the outer edges of this dartboard is your market. Okay, so you've basically got, we'll put that there, so you've got the market is your whole dartboard. So that's anyone you can serve. Yes. Okay, so then as we move in from the edges of the dartboard, then we get more to a target market. An example of this for a bookkeeper is service-based businesses, right? So tradies, health services, professional services, all the different services, yeah? And then if we go in a bit from that target market, yeah, on the dartboard, we're trying to get to the bullseye here, then we get into more of a niche. Yeah, so we're getting into more of a niche, and we would say, okay, well now actually I want to help tradies. Yeah, and then we get into more of a micro niche. For example, I'm just helping electricians. All right. So in terms of females, I've got one of my clients, actually, she does specialize in females, and she's found that she's ended up serving lady tradies. So females would definitely be, well, I think it would be a niche, and then lady tradies would be a micro niche. Now, there is one more spot, and that's the bullseye. And the bullseye is your avatar, right? And you might have heard this before, and that's where we say, well, this is, we usually with an avatar, we say their name, their age, where they live, etc., etc. But, the other thing we could say about an avatar is it would be, I think it's you narrow in on one person. Like, it's like your ideal person to serve, everything about that person. Because with the micro niche, when we go deeper on that, it can even be a fast field work, residential electrician, right? Because an electrician is still broad. In fact, there's an argument to say the electrician is still a niche rather than a micro niche, okay? So the micro niche, you start to get into that it's a specific portion. Now, as an example, the Strategic Bookkeeper. This is our old website. By the time you see this, we might have a new one, and my hair is short and curly. I've embraced my curls. Okay, so the Strategic Bookkeeper serves the micro niche because I serve bookkeepers, but only self-employed bookkeepers from start up to scaling. So I kind of serve four types: startup, growing, booked but broken, and scaling, but they're self-employed bookkeepers. So that's a micro niche. So now on to, is it, is it a good idea to niche? What do I think of targeting female entrepreneurs? So first of all, niching, fantastic. Love niching. Looking forward to writing a book on this. So why do I love niching? I'm going to go into that now. And I'm going to use an example. So, another example, Tina Tower, who I love, she's fabulous. She serves female course creators. So that is a niche and maybe even a micro niche, okay? I'll also show you curls with Melissa, which is one of the best examples of micro niching. I did also just look up bookkeeping for women, and one of my clients who micro niches, she came up as just the third in the search, okay, and that starts to lead towards one of the many reasons niching and micro niching is great. So why do I love micro niching? And you've seen curls by Melissa. So one of the reasons I love it is supply and demand. Yeah. So when you get into niching and more micro niching, I would say. So for example, I might want to just serve chiropractors. That would be a micro niche. So if you were to search bookkeepers for chiropractors, the supply is going to be low, because you would know that bookkeepers are more general. But if I am a chiropractor and I think, well, I need a bookkeeper who just works with chiropractors because I've decided in my wisdom that is important, then I'm not going to be able to find many people who specialize. Now, let me tell you, curls by Melissa, I know Melissa personally, I cannot get an appointment with her. Even though she wants to charge me about $500 before she'll even touch my hair, she is so in demand because on the Gold Coast there's only about 2 or 3 people in a 50k radius that specialize in curls. Okay, so that is one of the things. So you end up you're the expert, right? That's perceived and actual. So it elevates, because you're the expert, your competitive advantage. Yeah. So these are all, I would say, these are all brand, marketing, selling advantages, which makes your ability to onboard these clients without price as a priority easier. Okay, so I'm going a little fast and furious, but this gives you some examples. So the other reason I love micro niching is when you are getting your business started, you need to start with you. That's like your brand story, right? Then you need to go who, where, why, what, or usually why, how, what, and so on. Now, who you serve when you micro niche. So let's just say it's female entrepreneurs, yeah, which is not a niche. Let's say it's female entrepreneurs in a particular industry. Let's say it's lady tradies or something like this. Where you are going to find them becomes much easier. And so I want to dive into this just for a minute, but it's going to be easier for me to use chiropractors as an example. There's heaps of examples. I could even use bookkeepers because I micro niche into bookkeepers. Chiropractors, okay? So where are they? Where are all the chiropractors? Well, they're at the associations. They're probably using the same software. They are at the conferences. So what I call this is, if we imagine your who are fluffy sheep, yeah, so they're little sheep. Where are all your sheep herded into? Sheep in one paddock, okay? Versus if I'm just looking for service-based businesses, they're all over the place. They're in this massive field and I have to go running around to find them. But what you can do is you can find the shepherd of your sheep. Another example, graphic designers, if you're targeting them, they're all at Canva, okay? So for me as a bookkeeper in practice, I know that for me at the Strategic Bookkeeper, I still have my bookkeeping practice as at the date that I'm doing this video. But for me, and I don't micro niche at my bookkeeping practice. You don't have to micro niche, but this video is about the benefits of micro niching. Okay, so at the Strategic Bookkeeper, where would I find all the bookkeepers that I want to serve? Well, they're using QuickBooks Online software, Xero software. So I can look to run an event for those software houses to help them, right? So I know how to reach them, and it's easier to speak to them. Okay, so micro niching makes marketing easier, and it makes it easier end to end. So to showcase that, I'm going to come over to the Bookkeeping Practice Blueprint. So when we micro niche, finding our audience becomes finding the shepherd of our sheep. Now, everything takes work. Nothing is just easy peasy, right? Whether you micro niche, whether you don't, you have to give me hours and attitude, and you have to put in the work. You need to ultimately, definitively do these 5 things. Yeah, you need to team up. You need to learn for the rest of your life. You need to build the powerful assets, like your brand assets and so on. You need to learn, do by implementing all of this in the market. That's how you really learn. And then ultimately you need a mastermind group. So it doesn't matter whether you niche, whether you don't niche, this is what you need. Now, when I am working with bookkeepers who elect to niche or micro niche, thanks to the power of AI, particularly large language models like ChatGPT, what I can now do with far more ease is we can give them the amazing strategy and the assets, because the strategy rarely ever change. Anyone who knows anything about marketing, read any of the good books, they're going to say exactly that to you, okay? We all say the same thing. So the strategy doesn't change, right? And the assets we give you, for example, the brochure, have a basis in strategy. For example, I've got an accountant currently looking at joining us that doesn't do any bookkeeping and tax. Ultimately, what she does is what I call more business coaching. It falls into the advisory. So virtual CFO, this kind of thing. Now, she can still join the program, and in a similar way to micro niching, which is what I want to explain now, is we would take the strategy of the brochure, run it through ChatGPT, and then we would get it to create a 2.0 that just zoomed in, right? Remember the dartboard? So we want to zoom in to that micro niche with our messaging and so on, okay? Now, a word on female entrepreneurs. So just something that I have seen and my clients have noticed when working with females. So as a bookkeeper in practice, when you are selling through bookkeeping and beyond to prospective clients, we have noticed that females, they do act differently to males, and females, honestly, we've all noticed they're harder to sell bookkeeping to. So that female niche can be a little harder, but it still shouldn't put you off if your heart is in it. Like if you want to serve mumpreneurs, then it shouldn't put you off, because there are pros and cons to everything. Some things are harder than others. My client that has nailed niching into women, which I will show privately to this particular email, because she's coming through to our program and the privacy thing is not an issue, but I'm not going to show it here. So she has a 12-week wait list at all times, and she can charge really high fees because she's nailed the micro niche. So the key to nailing the micro niche is doing the hard work around this. In my starter membership, I actually have a section on that. I'm actually going to show you in here. It's called Start With You, Build Business Naming, Rebranding and Your Brand Story, where we really help you dive in. So you can actually get this inside our starter membership, which as at today is $59 US for a year's access. It's a great place to start. And if I come back to our website, work with me. This will probably all change over time, but you can see our starter membership here. So even though I'm saying, okay, women can be a tougher crowd when it comes to selling bookkeeping, maybe not other products and services, but bookkeeping, then to get that right, you really need to get brand assets and so on right. So inside the program, and this bookkeeper Sally, who has come through an email, she is looking to join the program. So inside the program, we'll make sure that we help you with that from the beginning in order to get it right and make sure you hit the mark rather than miss the mark. Now, one of the words that I said earlier, so mumpreneur, for example, if you're really, in your marketing, you want to stand out, not blend in. So words like mumpreneur, okay, really help. And if I just come back over here, Tina Towers stuff's great. Be inspired by other businesses that are specializing in women. So for example, for Sally, she could go to Tina Tower. She could find all her perfect clients at Tina Tower. So remember when I said that your where becomes like everything in terms of marketing gets easier, but please know it doesn't mean easy. It just means it can be easier when you're micro-niching. Business is hard, okay? Business is hard. So it can get easier to find your ideal clients when micro-niching. So for example, you could micro-niche into bookkeeping for female course creators. That would be a real micro-niche. And I know that this particular bookkeeper has a background in marketing, so that might be ideal. It might be female marketing creatives. It could be anything like that. But coming up with this language around mumpreneurs and really diving deep into their why. I am so passionate about women, and I talk a lot about the different drivers of men and women. I'll show you another micro niche for women. So here's another micro niche for women. And of course, all your ideal clients are right here. Okay, so forming partnerships is not easy. So when I say it gets easier, the application is sometimes a little harder. Okay, but that's okay. Everything good, things that are wonderful and worthwhile usually take some effort. But AI her way. She's passionate about AI for women entrepreneurs. Okay, so you start to see how that works. So my advice to Sally would be that number one, women in its own right is more like a target market than a micro niche. We are getting into niching when we say women, but personally, I think you need to go a bit deeper. And I would say even if it was female online entrepreneurs, okay, female course creators, but look at Nikki Sweeney, she's just female entrepreneurs, okay. But I do think if your heart is in it, I absolutely believe that we are put on this planet to do certain things, and we should come from a heart and gut-led place. So if you get a gut feel and if your heart takes you there, go down the micro-niching rabbit hole. So I think females is fantastic, women is fantastic. It is a smaller portion of the market, but the smaller portion doesn't matter. What matters is supply and demand. Yeah, I'll give you an example. If I have a suburb with 5 gyms in it, but the suburb demands a lot of gyms, it doesn't matter. As long as the supply and demand equation, as long as the supply and demand equation is right. Okay, so another example, I once had a client and he found a cheap premises for a gym, couldn't believe how cheap it was. There were no other gyms in the area. And when I did the urban economics report, that's because there was no demand for gyms. Okay, so it's interesting with micro niching, even though, say, women, for example, or any micro niche, we might say, like me serving bookkeepers, right? It's a much smaller pot of businesses, but the supply and demand equation is often favorable when we niche and micro niche. Okay. Lastly, I believe the future of bookkeeping is niching and micro niching. I believe that if we did a SWOT analysis on bookkeeping and looked at the economic, tech, and consumer landscape for the future, I think one of the ways that we would strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, that we would find an opportunity to mitigate a threat is through niching and micro niching. So I love, love, love it. I am always going to advocate for it. And there is 20 minutes education on niching, on micro niching. Please reach out to hello@thestrategicbookkeeper.global if you've got a question that you would like answered.